disagreement tonight. Personally, I hate working with women. And I understand. Oh my God, that's sexist. And it's like, yeah, that's not true if you're an architect or a doctor or an airline pilot. But what I do for a living is heavy lifting, welding. It's heavy, hard work, and I always find that women in workshops, women at at the bottom of the economy, where I work currently, I generally find women to be a nightmare to work with. So yeah, my opinion is not very good. And, probably, yeah, like I understand that, most of the argument about like what feminists argue about is about the best jobs that are hard to get anyway. That, like, it's very hard to become an architect, or like, the one I know particularly is airline pilot. Only 4% of airline pilots are women, and it's like, yeah, but it's very, very difficult for the 96% of airline pilots who are men to become a pilot as well. And Andrew.
Andrew.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Digging the look, bro.
Oh, I appreciate it, Frank. Yeah, these braids kind of make my forehead look big, so I was like, let me throw a bandana on.
I never thought about that. Just like a comedic side effect. Let's just go one extreme, like gangs in America. Sometimes they wear bandanas in certain colors, but I never thought it's like, man, my forehead is too big. Let me do this.
Probably, I feel like it's a reasonable explanation.
The cancer patient look with the bandana.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, with this particular hairstyle, my barber tends to push my hairline a little bit back. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I should just throw a little something.
Yeah. Do they hurt when they get pulled?
Do they what? Oh,
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. that was one of the reasons why I really started shaving. Like, my hat would just pluck out hairs on the top of my head.
No.
It really hurt. So they were not very well held in there.
Oh man, that sounds a little bit painful. Yeah, anytime I get braids, they hurt pretty bad. I guess it depends on how big the braids are, though, because if they're like really tiny ones, I think they hurt like so much worse than if you just get a bunch of big ones. I'm just giving you future advice, George, for when you get some braids.
Yeah. When this braids up, it'll.
Yeah, that's why That's one reason why I'm not a fan of like braids, cornrows, cornrows specifically, or even sometimes locks, because it takes some time, and you can invest a lot more time if you want to be careful, but the average amount ends up hurting. They pull us like, we gotta finish this, gotta get in.
Gotta get it tight and secure.
Yeah, I don't know how Lewis Hamilton does it. He has like braided hair, and he puts the helmet on top of that. I don't know, it must hurt like hell. It's
probably is painful, but it probably makes it more manageable,
Yeah, maybe.
Because I mean, if you look in the UFC, a lot of the fighters will like braid their hair and stuff, just because it keeps it from getting everywhere. I don't know if you guys have ever delved into any like martial art type stuff?
No, I'm soft as shit. I fly planes. I don't.
How about you, Frank?
I've done not martial arts. I've done breaking, but
I don't know what that is.
Breakdancing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only done like 6 or 7 months of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a little bit of wrestling and then some Muay Thai.
Ooh.
And man, if you don't have like like your hair like secure and you have long hair, you're having to tie that shit up like every couple minutes because you when you're hitting the bag, if you're like fighting someone, like you're sparring and everything, that shit just comes out like nothing. It doesn't matter how hard you have it tied back. Like it's gonna get all frizzy and get in your face and get annoying. So
Yeah.
and then people are gonna like get on your hair. Like in jujitsu, a lot of the times, if I was like on my back, someone would like have their arm like on my hair, and I'm like, oh my god, like, this is not fair. So
Yeah, this is the aerodynamic advantage. Yeah.
yeah, you do have quite a few advantages there. My
Yeah, the only thing is it's cold. Your head gets really cold.
I imagine so.
And I'm a welder, so if I'm welding like that, all the sparks land on your head.
Oh god.
They like roll off, but right now they just sort of gather around the bands of the welding helmet and just like burn like hell.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I would have thought that you have like a full kind of helmet being a welder.
Yeah, you do, but the sparks just fly everywhere, and the little red hot balls of metal, they fucking go everywhere, and they get inside your safety glasses too. Like if you're welding like this, occasionally you'll see a spark like roll around, and it's like, oh, that's inside my safety glasses. It's not move.
That doesn't seem like the job for me.
Yeah, it's not really my favorite job in the world, but it pays the bills.
For sure. So how have you guys been? What have you guys been up to? You guys been in the chat for a little bit?
So I joined in, kind of set it up at 12:15. I just got back from meeting up with my local Orlando group, Jordan Peterson group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a small Orlando Jordan Peterson scene. It's weird to say it like that.
Yeah, no, it does sound like kind of a cult, but
Yeah. No doubt.
We understand. And that just makes it sound even more cultish.
Right?
That. But that's cool, man. What do you guys do?
So usually we go to like a restaurant. Like this morning it was First Watch. It's like a brunch place.
Oh yeah, we have that here in Colorado.
Nice. Yeah, and then it's crazy. We do like the same thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool. It's really cool. It's not as regular. It's like twice a month. What's interesting is that so I feel like it's weird over here in this group. Couple of things. It's our age group. Everyone is around the same age.
No.
And I feel like most people here lean toward the left, stereotypically. Like I think maybe George, a little bit like a mix. You lean a little bit more right. Same thing with Eric. I mean, Eric just straight up said he was a little bit more extreme. And then he kind of normalized to like a moderate conservative somewhat. He sees the reason for the left and its existence.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone in the Orlando group leans more right. They're more libertarian. Wow. So it's really interesting. And with them, like over here, like not just myself, but a lot of us poke at the left a bit. The extreme left, radical left.
Yeah.
But also a bit on the right. Over there, they definitely poke at the left and the radical left, and not as much on the right. But they do understand the balance. But when I'm with them, I'll poke more on the right just to balance it out, as opposed to here. So it's kind of fun doing this switcheroo or whatever.
Yeah, you kind of help offset the group a little bit there.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's the sign of a healthy group, not one that just gets more and more radical as it goes on, which is So you need you need balancing principles of a group to stop that sort of spiral effect happening. And the funny thing is like with newspapers in England, you can see the less people read it, the more extremist it becomes. So the less people read it, so the more extremist it becomes, and it just goes down this spiral of losing readers. But to get the ones that will still read to buy, they have to go more extreme. So it's
man.
Yeah, it's a sad state of journalism.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like what happened with like Fox News and Newsmax.
Oh, yeah.
And how kind of Fox News, they like stopped. Well, I feel like it's a little bit of a different situation because they had to stop doing the election fraud stuff because they were about to get sued. But then Newsmax and OAN kept it up, and so people like kind of migrated over there. So I guess maybe it's
yeah. Their presenters have a habit like Glenn Beck. They get very popular and then they get restricted by the platform and they go and do their own thing and take all the support with them.
Right. Yeah. So I guess things just kind of got divided with regard to those kind of more right wing news stations. Just probably mainly because of the lawsuits. And then, a lot of Trump supporters started saying, well, now Fox News is too left wing.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not a good sign. Yeah, but like with the platform, there's governance of of what's on television. There's governance like Ofcom and whatnot. So
yeah, it's crazy. It's like I never thought I mean, I knew it was possible, but when you hear that Fox News is too liberal, you know something is up. Something's not right here.
Yeah. I just couldn't believe how much more that was kind of spiraling down into, I don't know, just a terrible place, a terrible void I feel like it's ended up in. And like I feel like the only thing that kind of stopped all that crazy shit was like the lawsuits. I don't know.
A dose of reality, maybe.
Yeah, really. And they had to like read these scripts off, and then I forgot which news station it was, but they had the My Pillow guy on there, and he kept trying to like harp on the election fraud thing. And then the host kept like he was like trying to interrupt him. He's like, I don't want to talk about the fraud stuff. We don't have any proof. I just want to let everyone know. And I was like, oh my goodness. And he like straight walked off of the set. And I think it was on like either Newsmax or OAN. And I was like, oh my God, man. Like, you guys are going to have like crazy ass, like psycho people on. Like, what do you expect? But
yeah. Well, one of the problems with American news is it actually makes its own news. They'll have some controversial person on at lunchtime. They'll say something ridiculous, and then that's the news story that night. And the whole, like, there is an objective news, and every time with Fox News something goes on, they get a whole bunch of people on to just have an argument, and they just end up just screaming at each other, and it's like, what happened? There's an objective fact. What factually happened? That's what you have reporters for. But no, they just, oh, well, this is what I think. This is what I think. And then you just end up with two people arguing. And it's like, that's not a very productive way of conveying the events of the day, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, some of those news stations are like, they mix their opinion pieces with like the news, and they fail to really disclaim like which piece of the show this is. Is this the kind of a opinion piece, or is this real news? It kind of gets a little bit wishy-washy, and you're like, what am I hearing right now? Like, is this your opinion?
Yeah, the sad thing, I think, what's gotten left behind is like, especially with the Young Turks. The Young Turks is a news program that's news is the news. It doesn't actually go and do much reporting. It does occasionally, but all of their sources are news channels. They very rarely go and do an investigative piece. And it's like what's gotten left behind is investigative journalism, which is exactly what is supposed to keep an eye on the institutions that are built to serve certain purposes. And when they overstep their mark or fail in their job, investigative journalists were always there to write a piece and say, this institution has failed in this way or is overstepped in that way or whatever. And now with all the opinion news and opinion pieces and like the Young Turks, their whole news is that all their news sources are other news companies. And it's like you don't do any actual investigation yourself. You need to get out there and actually report the news. And
I don't want the Young Turks doing anything really.
yeah.
They're absolutely fucking retarded. They're so fucking thick. Those people, it hurts my brain. I haven't watched the Young Turks in years.
Yeah,
Like I would sooner watch Tucker Carlson than I would watch the Young Turks, and I disagree with Tucker Carlson a lot more than the Young Turks.
Yeah, I
But it's just
think that's
like
a fair.
the Young Turks just have a half a brain between the whole team. Like it's just
there's no diversity of opinion. There's no diversity of thought. That James is such a great guy.
there's no amount of diversity of opinion is going to save them. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Every time I see the Young Turks, like I don't know if you guys scroll through kind of the videos on Facebook sometimes to waste some time.
Mm.
Anytime like I see the Young Turks, it's just
yeah.
I just kind of scroll on by because I don't even want to hear it.
Well, do you guys find that stuff boring anymore, or it's not boring, but like maybe boring is a bit strong, like. But my issue when it comes to looking at certain like these online content channels at this point, I know Young Turks is like just a big version of them, but it's kind of like, I mean, it's basically the Steven Crowder of left wing or Ben Shapiro of left wing. It's like I find all of those channels just boring at this point because they never say anything new.
Exactly, because like I started to watch the Ben Shapiro one when he started off, and I stepped away from watching news. I came back just to like kind of catch up, but then kind of like with Jordan and Trump a little bit and all of that. But then it's like I stopped. It's the same thing. It's like I'll tell you what's on. Well, Trump's no longer in office, but if he was, I'll tell you what the news is. The news is Trump said something ridiculous. Oh my God, let's talk about it. And this is how it's hurting people. And that's true. That's fine. But I know what you're gonna say, and it's not productive. That's not gonna lead me to take any kind of action. It's just saying it.
It's just that it's the same arguments all the time, like, and it's even when it isn't Trump, it's still whether it's some kind of riot or some person has said something or somebody has gotten cancelled or whatever the fuck, I don't know. And it's just always the same thing of this is the problem with the left and this is the problem with the right. And it's like, I mean, it's not that stuff isn't important in that. And I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I'm above all that, because I'm not. It's just that in terms of the stuff that you consume on a daily basis, there's only so many times you can hear that stuff before it does lose interest,
Yeah,
it's not fun to listen to.
Yeah, when it was new to me, then I listened to it. But Ben Shapiro and the Young Turks, like when I found the Young Turks, I watched a fair bit of their content. Didn't agree with it all, but then just over time, it just became it's like It just gets boring. And although it was absolutely hilarious to watch them the night that Trump got elected.
That was very funny. That was really hilarious.
That was very funny. Anna, what's her name, going completely fucking mental.
But even like there's now, I know he isn't as big as like, let's say, Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro, but like, well, you can definitely make this case about Steven Crowder as well. Like, but there's a lot of these channels that got big around 2015, 16, like, Carl Benjamin, like, Sargon of Akkad and stuff. Like he was one of the few like Gamergate people that managed to limp on past Gamergate and grow his channel even more and get like hundreds of thousands of subs. But like, I made a prediction when Trump lost that all of those channels that had made a business out of talking about, oh, look at the left losing their mind at Trump again, they had spent the last 4 years making a business out of that, which is fine. That's fine to make a business out of that if you want to. But I was like, all of these people are going to go nuts. They're going to lose their mind. They're going to become totally conspiratorial. They're just going to just fall off a cliff. Like, I remember when I first came across Sargon, he was doing like book reviews of like Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, and he was doing some really interesting kind of slightly more in-depth like philosophical analyses and stuff and things. Like his quality of his writing and everything was way better. And now he's just like, he was all over voter fraud. Like, he was all over it. And I'm just sitting there going, man, what has happened? You know, like, and he was on another podcast there recently. It was just a podcast that I listen to regularly. He's not normally on it, but he was on it that week, and it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the election or something. And like, he was sitting there talking about how America doesn't have a democracy anymore. You know, it's like, and I'm just sitting there going, man, what happened? Like, what happened? Like, you know, I mean, it's like spending years saying the same old shit every day just rots your brain, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The one thing with Sargon of Akkad I thought was very, very funny was when with the Brexit referendum, when it came up, he decided to join the whole Leave campaign and everything because the EU was it was anti-democratic, it was this, it was every epithet under the sun. And he did a long interview with Thunderfoot. I thought it was quite interesting. You got to say Thunderfoot really got the meat out of his argument and made a good case for the EU. But what I thought was very funny was in the southwest, Cornwall, where he's from, UKIP, United Kingdom Independence Party, had 33% of the vote the year before Brexit, and he stood as a European Member of Parliament, and he got 3% of the vote. And his whole thing was, the EU doesn't have a democracy. Yes, but you were literally standing for election to the EU Parliament. That sort of irony never seemed to sink into the guy. That it was like, your whole case is that there is no say in the EU, and that's your campaign for a seat in their parliament. And he ended up getting 3% of the vote, and he was very cross about that. And his whole thing, when they asked him, you need another 10,000, you need to get another 10,000 people to vote for you to have a chance of getting a seat. His thing's, I've got 1 million subscribers, and it's like, yeah, but they're in America. They're in America. Like, you need 10,000 people in your town. Not in America. And it's like, well done. They're not here. That means shit, right? And then he did a whole video about like how Le Pen was going to win the election in France over Macron, and it was like Le Pen only got to the second round, because how it works in France is you have to have more than 50% of the vote to become the president. So they have one election where they pick 2 people who go to the next election, right? So Le Pen got the second place behind Macron, who was the most reasonable candidate. Everybody protest voted for her, and she ended up getting like 30% of the overall vote in the runoff election. And it was like the reality, and what he was saying was just so incongruent.
Yeah.
He's like, Penn's got this one, and
yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about the EU if you like, or we can talk about Sargon, but he just really did fall off a fucking cliff edge. Like, he just lost his goddamn mind over the last few years. Like, and I think when he joined UKIP, it was just like his whole sense of like the political landscape in Britain was way off, because it's just like anyone with a nose at all. Like, I don't know about you guys, Americans, how much you would know this, but like anybody with any bit of political savvy or any sense of the political landscape after the Brexit referendum knew that UKIP was dead the minute the Brexit referendum passed, because that was the only reason for UKIP. That was the whole point. And Nigel Farage was UKIP in terms of he was Brexit UKIP. So when he left UKIP, like, what was it, like 18 months or something after the referendum, or did he leave 6 months? I can't remember.
It was quite soon after. It was
yeah. It's like the minute he's gone, it's like, that's it. Like, because he was the only person in UKIP. Now, regardless of whether you think he's an asshole, he was the only one with any bit of like political clout, with any bit of charisma, that. And so when he left, it was a dead fucking party, absolutely fucking dead. And the idea that people were going to vote for a candidate who's standing for a party whose entire reason for existence was to get out of the EU, and you're going to vote for one of those candidates after you've already voted to leave the EU to put him in that parliament. It's like, what?
Yeah, the whole thing just did not make any sense.
No, it made no sense. And it's like, I think he was just using it as an excuse to kind of get more like I guess, into some kind of political scene, like actual political scene in Britain. That's the only thing I can think of that made any sense. It's that, or he's
just trying to be
idiot.
Controversial.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
like actually,
up some for his channel or something. But if he actually wanted to be, if he was serious about getting into politics, he'd have just joined the Conservative Party
or the Brexit Party,
or the Brexit Party, which he was running against.
Yeah, he was running against the fucking Brexit Party. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you'd either run for the Conservatives, who were in power, and just run for a seat at the table, or be a leader in the Brexit Party, which actually had support. But UKIP was just like, I mean, the only actual, I mean, Paul Nuttall was the only actual MP, and he lost his seat.
Yeah,
nuts. He was completely nuts. So.
It'd be funny though, like what George said about the politician mentioning his subscribers. I wish we could do that in real life. If applying for a job, if I got pulled over by a cop, it's like, do you know who I am? I have 1,000 subscribers. Like,
dude, I've got 60 followers on Twitter. What are you doing? You know who I am.
But yeah, and then something else I noticed is like these political talk shows or YouTube channels, they're following a trend. They're becoming more not just commentary, but like personality based. And that's just like a lot of YouTube content. Like people don't really make content. It's like reaction videos. That's all it is. It's political reaction videos. And
so you got fucking like Vosh. Like, what the fuck? How is he getting popular? That man is so thick, but he's like really well spoken, and it's like he's like this mastermind at like mangling a conversation so that whoever he's talking to just gets really confused.
I'm sorry, who's this? Vosh?
I can't pronounce his name in my accent. It doesn't work.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, he's pretty much like this socialist personality who kind of does live streams every day, and I forgot how I even saw his stuff. For some reason, it was like recommended on my algorithm, and I don't even like watch like he's fairly far left, and I don't even watch like really far left people, but he's like straight up like hardcore socialist. We have to have a revolution. Super articulate guy. I took sociology, and I have my whatever degree from university, and he's just kind of like really preachy about that kind of stuff. And when he debates people, I mean, as I said, he's really articulate with his ideas, and he can make everything sound good. But when people kind of press him on it, because there's I think this guy named Destiny. You guys know who Destiny is?
Destiny is hilarious.
Yeah, like, he's another kind of, I guess he considers himself like a liberal streamer, and when they kind of go at it, I've seen them go at it before, and like when Destiny will like press Vosh on like his stuff, it kind of starts to break down a lot bit. And have a plan of
Destiny, like Destiny is a really good. I find content like his to be a really good touchstone. Because he's a bit of a contrarian, just like and he's I don't know how much I agree with him. I'm not really sure, but like he's a good touchstone in the sense that like if you're like a million miles away from him, as in if he's coming off as totally fucking nuts to you consistently, if like I find that I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good sign that I need to maybe dip my toe into some other news, into some other kinds of sources, some other echo chambers. Like he's funny, like, and watching him not have his head explode when he's trying to debate Bosch is some quality content.
So
Yeah.
it's more so instead of like informative, you treat it like entertainment.
Oh, like you'll learn something from Destiny, but you won't
Mhm.
learn anything from Vosh. Like not at all. Like you'll
Right.
just learn what not to say and what not to do.
Yeah,
It's like what Professor Brian Cox says in England. There's a fella on TV. He presents like science shows, like kind of like Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
Brian Cox. He was the pianist in Thin Lizzy at one time. He's a musician as well, but he's a professor of physics. And his statement is very simple. It's impossible to argue with an idiot. It's like you cannot argue with an idiot. It does not work. They win every time, and you just there's no winning. You can't do it. So
well, I think the problem with Vosh is that he, I mean, quite obviously he's college educated. Like, you can really tell because
Oh, yeah.
of the sequence, that his sequence of thoughts to get to wherever he's going. It just lines up perfectly. Like, it just sounds so good. It's so smooth, and he's using all of these, particular phrases and words, and it's like, oh wow, this guy's so smart. He sounds so good. But as I said, whenever somebody who is smarter, who can actually kind of see through these things, they're just like, just like Destiny. I watched one recently, and he's like, no, like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, stop. Like the last one that I saw, he like pretended to be asleep. And then he was like, Bosch got mad. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I got so fucking bored because you didn't even tell me. You're not telling me anything right now. And at the very end of the stream, he was like, yeah. He's like, well, call me back in 25 fucking years whenever your fantasy socialist island pops up out of nowhere. And then he just like hung up. I was like, Jesus, man,
it's brilliant. It's so funny. It's some gladiator shit. Like it's great.
It really is. Yeah, and
it's like the soap opera. It's the soap opera of political YouTube.
There you go. Exactly.
It's super dramatic. I like to watch Destiny stuff, and like
yeah, fuck that, man. Everybody needs a bit of Coronation Street, or something like that.
Yeah, and like I don't know, like you said, like I don't agree with him on everything, but I feel like he's got a really good kind of sequential thought process. Like it makes sense. The way that which he gets to his conclusions, it's really like consistent.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, like, he's really extreme too. So there's so much entertainment in what he's saying. Like you said, you learn something as well when you're kind of watching his shows.
Yeah. Well, it's like I always learn something, or I learn some kind of new thing. Because the other thing as well is he's very, because the one thing that I think is actually stands for someone like Ben Shapiro is that at least if Ben Shapiro starts talking policy, he's actually got. I find Ben Shapiro knows something at least about policy. He's got a perspective, and I will learn something about his perspective when it comes to policy.
Wasn't Ben Shapiro a trained lawyer?
Yeah.
Yes, actually. How did you say that?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because law is how policy is affected. So
yeah. Well, what I mean is just that, like, because policy in all respects in all countries is definitely my weakest thing. I know fuck all about policy, and it's nice to find. And Destiny is kind of like that. Destiny really has his bread and butter in policy, so it's always nice you'll always learn something, or at least I do,
Yeah, I do as well. I don't know, like, for me, so like earlier Frank was talking about how our group is like I would say geared more to the left, right? And I think I would agree. I would say, like, for me, I'm probably center left because I do have some like certain conservative values that you probably wouldn't expect from me, but like because I'm like more center left, I can hear the kind of a partisan twist that happens like in the news, especially if you kind of listen to say someone like, I don't know if you guys know who David Pakman is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think so.
you hear like David Pakman, and he's pretty honest about his like left wing twist, and it's not too extreme. And then you hop over to like Ben Shapiro's show, and I think that he has a pretty hard right twist. But like you can kind of, I guess that's the good thing about having so much media available to us now, especially independent media, because it's like, well, I think you get an ear for those twists, and you're like, okay, well, where's the objective news? Where's the objective truth? And then I think you get an idea when you hear like policy people like Ben about like what's realistic. I like to watch debates a lot online.
Yeah.
I like to like on YouTube. I like to see like. Well, I would say that everybody likes their own ideas reinforced. If we're going to be honest here, you look for a debate, and you don't want your side to be beaten. So you're like, like let me just see this debate. This guy's a pretty smart guy representing my idea. So
But then like when your guy loses, you try to find another guy that can beat him.
Exactly.
It's like video.
yeah, exactly. Oh, let me find a different one. This guy sucks. So. But yeah, I mean, that's why I like to watch the debates, and I would say like another component of that is, well, you certainly learn to strengthen your arguments by hearing two people go back and forth, but you also hear some valid points against your arguments, which I like too, because then you can take that into consideration and, as I said, see what is actually realistic with regard to, I guess, your point of view.
Yeah, like I mean, the thing is, now I don't know. I haven't thought about it a lot, and I'm not a massive fan anyway. I think of the left-right thing. It works to a large extent, but like because I just find, okay, I'll just come out and straight out and say it. I find that the most reasonable people and the people that I always find have the most kind of, let's say, well thought out positions are center left people. It's not even center right. I just don't. I always have issues even with center right people, with one exception, which is policy. I think center right, it's like that's just the king of policy. It's they just know every little fucking detail, and they've got all the little facts and figures about like every single policy in every single city. But I just find if you get onto anything more like social, cultural, anything that's more like kind of even about like the big problems with the society and with the culture and with the political process broadly and stuff, and with the heads of state and things. So because even my favorite one who describes himself as a conservative is either Douglas Murray or Andrew Sullivan. But both of those guys, I mean, they're conservative by British politics standards, but they're not conservative like at all by American standards.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think conservatism has a different connotation in America. There's a lot of connotation associated with it.
Yeah, so when I say center left, I'm using the British like standard, like as in because so many of these people who are center left would many of these people who are conservative by that standard would still be left wing probably by American standards, I might be mixing up where I'm putting this, but you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The political landscape in England is very different to America. It's I think the difference between the center left and the center right mainly is the scale that they view the world. So like the center right people, they're more interested in the nuts and bolts of the policy because they're interested in the scale of small business. Whereas center left people is like they've been through university or college or whatever. More generally, they've had a little bit more experience of traveling generally, and they see the country as a whole rather than just like my little business and what affects that more directly. So I find from the center left to the center right, it's easy to get on with those people. But as soon as they start with the all Democrats are bad or all Republicans are bad, then you really just can't.
I think most people are actually not even like that. I mean, I think that is an online thing, where it's just like you just get blasted when you engage online.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true because all over my social media, I just see people my age demonizing right wing or conservative or Republican like all day long, and it's kind of ridiculous. Like it's just genuine blasting all the time of
Huh.
like anybody who is conservative or right wing, and they're all my age, so they're bleeding heart liberals and all this business, and they only know one perspective of the universe, and um, they don't even see the like they don't understand any aspect of conservatism at all besides their own straw man of what it is.
Hmm.
And
The irony is they will become conservative when you put them in the right environment. So when they've got the good job, when they've got the good house, when they've got the marriage and it's working, they will become conservative. And they might not vote for the Republican Party, but they will certainly be voting for people who represent the conservative point of view.
Well,
And
small c British conservative point of view.
yeah, not necessarily. Well, currently the Conservative Party in England has gone off the fucking deep end, but that's rare. I mean, it's always been sort of centre right until the last couple of years.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but
Do you think it's gone further to the right?
oh, absolutely. Well, see, the thing is so what really started the Brexit referendum was the Conservative Party was actually always in power on a coalition between the Liberal Democrats and the Conservative. It was a LibCon coalition government.
Was it?
Yeah, Nick Clegg was the deputy prime minister, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and it looked like they were going to lose to the Labour Party because the Liberal Democrat Party is a very left centre party, but they're very small. They only generally have about 6 seats in Parliament, and the Labour Party looked like they were going to win. So what David Cameron, the Prime Minister, did was say, well, we've got these far right wingers in UKIP who are taking votes away from us. So if I promise a referendum, they won't stand candidates, and they will vote for us. So we will get seats in Parliament because UKIP and BNP and all these far right groups. The deal is if we give you a referendum, you don't even go into the election. So we'll take those seats. And the idea is that, well, we're not going to actually have a referendum because we'll get a Lib Democrat, Lib Dem coalition government with the Conservatives. Nick Clegg as deputy prime minister can veto the referendum, and then everyone's a winner. Well, it didn't work out that way. He won in a landslide, and he didn't need a coalition. So all of a sudden, he's promised a referendum in writing and in law that, oh, well, now I have to have the referendum. And he thought, that's okay. The Remain campaign is clearly going to win. It didn't.
But he should have taken that as a fucking sign that Remain wasn't going to win.
Exactly. He'd already promised them in writing a referendum with the referendum bill. That was passed before the election. So it was going to happen unless the deputy prime minister could veto it.
That's the thing. But the thing about your system, though, is that when a party comes out and stakes something big, like we'll host a referendum on whatever it is, like if it comes out and makes a big policy claim, because you guys have first past the post, like whenever a party stakes out something big and concrete like that, you're probably not going to get a coalition.
Yeah.
It was one party or another is going to get a majority.
Well, that's exactly that's exactly what happened, and it was a gamble that didn't pay off. And well, it's cost England a lot of money. And one of the things in the future that's going to be a big problem is I've been living in France for 2.5 years, but a lot of people my age, they can't move out into their own homes. It's too expensive. Jobs in England are leaving England for the rest of the EU, Ireland in particular, because it speaks English. So you're going to get this brain drain of people my age leaving the country, and that was very hard on Canada because a lot of Canadians who go to university go to America and they don't stay in Canada. And that's devastating to an economy. See, the smartest people, they will leave. Well,
So Canadians are going to America for university?
No. What happens? Well, yeah, a lot of them do, because you can take the SATs in Canadian school. You just have to sign up for it as well. But what generally happens is Canadians get a good education in Canada, much cheaper than in America. And then when they're looking for a job as a 25-year-old, they are not married, they're not attached, they're looking for the best job. They end up going to Google and Facebook and all these companies and all the tech companies, everything in America. So they end up getting a visa, H-1B visa, to go to California or wherever they go. And, if you move there when you're 25, the next 5 years of your life, you're going from 25 to 30. That's generally where people settle down and get married, and they never go back to Canada. So I know a few people I went to school with who got it. Well, I know one girl who got a scholarship to go to Austin University, and she never went back to Canada. It's like Canada is losing all the most skilled workers because they all go to America. It's very hard on an economy when your smartest people all leave.
I wonder why that is. It just because we have so many big, corporations to work for?
It's where the money is, right? And that's where people go. It's like America has all the big companies, has all the, when you're 25, if you got a master's degree in engineering or like computer software, like one guy I know, it's like I could work for a bank in Canada for 30 grand a year, or I could go to California, work at Google and get 200 grand a year.
Or you can be like Ireland and offer like really low corporation tax rates so that all of the big companies from America and Britain set up here.
Yeah, like tax.
I wanted to check out Ireland too, so I'm gonna look into that.
But that it is like that. There is so much multinational like multinational corporations and industries in Ireland. It's like it's just especially because Irish third level education is paid for by the government, so it's encouraged where like at second level at high school or whatever that's called or whatever, and A levels in Britain, maths and science is really highly encouraged. So for example, we have a points. I don't know what you guys do with your standardized testing in America, but like we operate on like a points based system. So you sit a bunch of standardized tests in all of your subjects, and then how well you do, you get points, right? And then all your points get added up at the end, and you get a default 25 extra points out. So if you get a perfect score in an exam, you'll get 100 points, right? But in mathematics, if just by taking mathematics, they will automatically give you 25 points just for taking it. You don't. I think you have to pass, but I'm not even sure if you do. And so what they're doing is it ends up with the Irish population being very highly educated in science and mathematics.
That's good.
And it's, so couple that then with free tuition, to third level, and then you've got all these science and technology companies move to Ireland because it's cheap and because you've got a workforce there that's educated and that stuff. So yeah, it's there's not a lot of like all of the cool jobs. If you were talking about stuff like R&D and design and anything like that, like that's all still in Britain and in America, so if you wanted to get into any of that, you have to leave. But if you want to get into regular old manufacturing in various kinds of industries, or so like for example like biomedical devices, pharmaceuticals, etc. Like all of that is here, like in abundance.
What about China?
Well, yeah, but no one's going to fucking move to China.
Well, it specializes in mass volume, so very low skill labor. But they'll have like one person who can actually set up the machines. But it's like rather than making a machine that can make iPhones, they just make a conveyor belt and have 1,000 people that just put nuts and bolts together.
Because now, for them, labor is still cheaper than innovation, for lack of better words.
It's a communist country. It's free. To these tech companies, the labor and the materials. This is the problem with dealing with China. We don't really have a trade deal. We have a trade purchase. Like if you are doing business with China and you have a factory out there, you are hiring people, but it belongs to the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Everything does, and so you can get your product out of China, but generally, what business uses China for is like iPhones. It takes zero skill to put them together. It takes, instead of a fancy machine that costs millions, you just pay thousands of people a day, and like not almost nothing, and you get thousands of iPhones a day. And like for example, Chinese steel. This is why it's not allowed to be sold in the EU. Is it's cheaper? It's crap. I've welded with it. It's absolute shit. It's cheaper because the materials that are mined by the Chinese Communist Party. They're sold to the steel factory, which is owned by the Chinese Communist Party, and it's sold by the Chinese Communist Party. So it's like, well, that's undercutting every market in the world.
That's over where what is it called? The buildings where they make the iPhones? It's like Foxconn or something like that.
Oh yeah, they're huge.
And that's where I've only heard this from Joe Rogan before. He always kind of harps on this this thing that they have like nets around the buildings because the buildings jump off so often.
Yeah.
Suicide net. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. That is definitely that is true. I've heard. Well, I've never checked it myself, but I've heard a number of people that I usually would take them at their word when it comes to like claims like that. Like, and I've heard a number of people from like multiple different political perspectives all say that. Like, so.
I started looking into China because the last place I worked there a couple months, and they needed someone who could speak English and French. And the last guy who was a manager, they have a factory out in China, and their manager, who was from France, kept giving his abdication speech. So they offered me the job, and they were like, "Oh, you go out to China, we'll give you Chinese lessons." And so I started looking into it, thinking like China 10 years ago. But when I started looking into it, it was like, holy shit, the Chinese Communist Party is going crazy. Like Xi Jinping is a nutcase. I backed out of it. I said, no, I'm not interested because there is no freedom over there. In the I can't remember which province, Huizhou province, I think it was. When the Huawei CEO was arrested in Canada on international espionage charges, in Huizhou, which is north of Shanghai, they just went around and arrested all the Canadians. Every Canadian they could find, they just arrested, and not one of them has ever been seen again. This was 2 years ago, right? So people just disappear in China right now, and the Uyghurs out in the West, they're actually Muslim, and a lot of them are blonde. They're Asian and they're blonde, and they're quite interesting looking people. But because they have a unique culture, there's concentration camps where they're stripped of their culture and of their language. They're taught to speak Chinese, indoctrinated into communism. It's a lot of people. The rape and the murder is unbelievable. What's going on there now? And yeah, so I looked into it for a few weeks, thinking, a job out in China, that'd be an interesting 6 months. And after a few weeks, I was like, fuck that, I ain't fucking leaving the EU.
Yeah, there's this guy on YouTube who has his own channel who used to live in China. I think he lived in China for almost 10 years or something around that amount.
Serpent ZA?
What?
Serpent ZA?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, South African fella. Yeah.
Yeah, South African guy. Yeah, and he was talking about how like every immigrant has like an officer like assigned to them, like personally assigned to them, who comes up and like checks on them and follows them around and watches their every move. And if they haven't been seen at home for a couple of days, they'll like come and like bang on your door with a bunch of officers. And I just like I didn't know that was the reality of China now because I feel like China's so closed off from the rest of the world. You don't really get an inside look
Yeah,
until
And I wouldn't know a lot of the details, like, but I mean, like, I don't know. At least for me, I just feel like I don't need to know much beyond what happened in Hong Kong and beyond what happens to the Uyghurs or whatever way you pronounce it. You know, it's like,
Right.
okay, yeah, anywhere where that's happening, not somewhere I want to go, not somewhere that I think is a good place. You know, like,
Well, for
10 years.
sure. The intricacies were so I don't know. They left me so dumbfounded. Like the level at which you're monitored by the police force and like he was talking about how like incredibly racist they are there and even the people in China. He said that he can understand and kind of speak Mandarin or something like that. And
Fully
he was saying
fluent
that
in Chinese.
yeah, you walk anywhere and people are like talking about you if you're not Chinese.
Mm.
And so I just thought it was weird that along with kind of the I don't know the government, the culture is also kind of I guess off, but I guess that's kind of predictable um, when you take into consideration the way that they are educated, because it's pretty much to worship the Chinese Communist Party, and they're taught a different twist of history. That's what it sounds like to me.
Oh yeah, it's. I looked into it because I was like that guy Winston Serpent ZA was saying like 10 years ago, China was just this sort of nothing's really legal, but nothing's really illegal. Everything's a gray area with the law. You can just do what you want. But now it's a complete draconian uh, police state, and I looked into it and I was like, yeah, no thanks, guys. I'm quite happy here. And YouTube, totally illegal. Facebook, Twitter, totally illegal. Yeah, I kind of went off the idea quite quickly.
And what I was interested in was because like last year, so everyone was all over, the United States police force and talking about how America was like the worst place in the world, totally the most racist place ever. And I thought, they were making certain comparisons to how many people died over in like China and Japan from the police and all of this stuff. And I thought I was like, well, I don't know what it's like over in either of those places. So I was kind of interested to learn, I guess, what the culture is like, what the government is like over there, and I mean, from what I've heard about Japan as well, it's kind of the same thing. If you're not Japanese, you shouldn't be going into certain parts of Japan. Like they won't serve you. You're gonna get like intimidated by groups of people and uh, all of this weird stuff, which it's kind
Yeah.
of weird because I think they have a different perspective of people in a military uniform. Because my brother is actually stationed out in Japan. My little brother, he's like 21 years old, and he said that everywhere he goes, like if he like if like a Japanese person like accidentally bumps into him or anything, they get like super intimidated. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Like they're intimidated of like American soldiers, but from what I'm hearing on, I guess from every other place or whatever, Americans can't go into I guess certain parts of Japan because it's like racist and I don't know who else is like enforcing these rules of Japan,
Yeah,
not
in
letting
Japan,
people in, but
the Japanese government is the legitimate government, but the Yakuza, organized crime, have always been trying to sort of promote themselves as a alternative government. They don't stand in elections or anything, but they run large areas, and like the Japan actually still has the death penalty, and the Yakuza say, well, we actually just enforce the death penalty. If someone is committed a crime, we will just kill them. So they've always been this sort of they admire the samurai, the old culture. We're the alternate to a Western government, and they do control large areas of Tokyo and parts of certain islands. And so yeah, they're they control the whole gambling industry as well. Like it's.
I think that's crazy that kind of I guess like two big pieces of Japan went in separate directions. Would you say like after World War II or something like that? Because I know before, I mean, throughout history, Japan has been, a nation of like pride and the way of the samurai and stuff like that. Like, I think as far as like POWs, the surrender rate was like insanely low.
Oh yeah,
amongst the Japanese. Like they would rather die than.
Well, there was Japanese soldiers fighting the war all the way until the 80s. Like on certain islands in the Philippines, they got cut off, and their orders were to only take orders from their high command, and there were deaths all the way through to the 80s, and eventually a Japanese sergeant who knew them had to go out there to tell them that the war was over. They tried everything to tell these guys the war was over. There was 3 of them. There was 2 privates and a corporal, and the locals tried telling them everything. They just lived. They lived out in they camped out in the hills, and they moved around, and they tried several times to kill them because they were killing locals. But eventually, the Japanese government located their sergeant in the 80s, flew them out there to tell them the war is over. Put down your arms. And they were in surprisingly good condition considering they'd spent 30 years in the jungle. It was, but yeah, the General MacArthur, who was basically General Eisenhower in the Pacific, he was the military governor, the martial governor of Japan after the war, immediately after. And they put in basically a very liberal government, which most people, nearly all Japanese, follow today. But the Yakuza really don't. They're people who accept that they're there, but would rather go back to the old ways, the ancient. It's rather remarkable, actually.
Kind of reminds me. Well, and what I've heard is that the way that kind of Japanese culture has been propagandized to everyone is pacified. Like the government has wanted to pacify the image of themselves because they were so brutal and insane during the Second World War, the stuff that they did, and I mean, and the events kind of right before too.
The Japanese Empire was fucking brutal.
Yeah.
They had the 3 alls policy when they invaded Nanking, which was modern day Beijing, was rape all, kill all, burn all. Mm-hmm. And they did. that was so.
Have you? I wanted to read the book on the rape of Nanking, but I was like, this is gonna put me in a really bad mood if I sit here and like listen to it all day. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. Like, I learned some of the history about it, but I was like, I think that's the extent to which I'd like to expand my knowledge. Like, it's limited. I don't really want to know the intricacies as of now. Because like I said, I just think it'll put me in a bad. Have you guys kind of listened to the history of the rape of Nanking? Heard any of it?
I
have a couple of things.
I've heard several things. Like, cause I do know that like China and Japan had some beef, and not just China. I think some surrounding countries, maybe like the Philippines, because Japan at one point was expanding itself, and then it did retreat. There was like a comedic side. I think I saw on TikTok. It was like a joke, but it's kind of dark. All this happened, and at the end, it's like, what? Japan's like, how are we gonna rebrand our image? Anime, and then it's just cute stuff. We're just a cute country.
Right.
Laugh. Yeah, I mean,
anime is creepy, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's whatever. Like,
I'm done with this call. If you're gonna call anime creepy,
oh,
you're on the wrong group.
I think it's fucking creepy. Those girls cannot be any older than like fucking 12 in anime.
That's not the point of anime.
No, yeah, there's certain categories that are
not all hentai.
Yeah.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just saying, even like, it's fucking like, they're weird. Like, why are the women made to look like little girls, but not really little girls? It's just creepy. I don't know. And I'm not talking about fucking hentai. I know that that's fucking explicit shit, but I'm not even on about that.
You've just been looking at the wrong anime, Danny.
Really?
I saw Frank had a One Punch Man shirt on the other day.
Damn
like
right.
A sweater. Yeah.
Damn right.
To watch something like that, something where a guy in his underwear is doing a fitness test and blasting through the roof and shit. That was a good one. I love and One Punch Man. It's like this. I don't know if we want to get into anime. Probably not, but it's just this goofy ass thing. Maybe you should check it out. It'll change your perspective on anime. You see a bunch of ripped, almost naked dudes kind of running around. I don't know if that'll change it. I don't know if that'll change your perspective a little bit. They don't have girls
on that subject. I saw a brilliant TikTok. I think it was the Irish Taoiseach who was saying that he's looking forward to seeing all the children back in uniform, referring them to them going back to school. Program in Ireland that was very popular in England too, Father Ted, and it cut to that where one of the priests was like, "Yes, you like watching the children in their uniforms."
Oh my god, I hate our leaders. I hate Irish Taoiseachs. They're always so fucking shit.
It was. Yeah, when I heard him say that, I thought of the Father Ted line, and then on the TikTok it came up with the Father Ted line. I was like, that's pretty much what's.
Oh my god! Like no. Oh.
Well, apparently the Japanese haven't propagandized correctly to Ireland. If that's the kind of image you're getting over there, that's all I have to say about that at this point. But yeah, I mean, to get a little bit dark again, you know.
But like, I don't know, like when I just Google here now, right? I Google anime girls, right?
Why would you do that? You're setting
Because
yourself up.
I'm fucking making a point. I'm making a point.
You can't just do that.
I am making a fucking point. This shit is weird, man. These girls are like 10.
Well, you looked up girls.
Yeah, look up anime.
Right, but what I'm saying is it's anime girls, right?
And look up anime women.
Yeah.
No, my point is that I Google girls, and what shows up is a bunch of like massive boobs, scantily clad, like little fucking children. Like it's creepy.
Yeah, no, I get your point there, but what we see, what comes to the west of anime anime is a very, very broad genre in Japan, and it's.
Is there a chat?
It's not my thing at all, but like Pokemon, not really my thing. I was into it when I was a kid, obviously, but yeah. Have you guys seen on Amazon Prime? James May goes to Japan. It's a very interesting set of documents. It is really interesting. He goes from all the way from the north to the south, and there's very, very different cultures in Japan. When you go to the different islands, the cultures are quite different as well. So it is an interesting. Oh, there we go.
Look at this.
I was like, what's that present?
You're setting us up. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't do it. What the fuck is that?
What the fuck?
What is that?
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah.
You guys see the joke?
Oh my god. No, so okay, there is. It looks like we're getting into this. There is like a trope.
Mostly guys, you see.
There is a trope, and it's people who write anime. They respond to that. Like they start making parody. It's become a parody as well. Like girls in skirts with like exquisite feminine features. Let me say it that way. They just have big breasts or like big butts sometimes. So they exaggerate on purpose now because because there are instances of that, and there's like another trope that I'm pretty sure Andrew's familiar with. They always have this one guy who's I don't know if I'm saying this right. Erogenous, like can look like a female, like a guy, feminine features, really long hair. And there's been times where another guy will find him cute, and then it's like surprise, it's not a woman, it's not a female, it's a male. Yeah, and it's like and there's been tropes like that. It's really like meme itself throughout the anime.
Yeah, well, I promise you too that every anime is it's not just based around anime girls.
Oh no, I know.
Double sucking a knife or getting sniffed by Joe Biden.
Yeah, no, I know that. I get that. I wasn't trying to say that all because I mean I fucking love Dragon Ball Z and everything when I was a kid, like you know. But it's like, is that even anime? It looks like anime, but the
Dragon Ball Z anime.
Yeah, but the I don't know, man. Well, I'd bet a tenner that there's a pedophile problem in Japan. 100%.
It's actually no. You're kind of hitting on something because I remember a while ago I saw like this there's this map that you can look up. It's like an age of consent map to see like the broad age of consent just throughout the world. And I forgot what it was. I think in Japan it was like 13.
Nice.
Oh,
like so I think he actually
yeah.
Danny's hitting on a problem.
Yeah, it's fucking 13 years old. I fucking knew it.
Real.
Yeah, but it's cartoons, man. I'm telling you.
There are some points though. For example, something that I don't know how common it is, but it's definitely like stereotype is sexual molestations on their bullet trains because they get so crowded. That occurs, and also the let's say sexual. It's like they in their formality and them being proper and being work/goal orientated. It's like there's a sexual suppressor. Repression, yeah. And it comes back in a negative way. Kind of like,
I was watching a video about someone who went to an evangelist's college, and he was saying about the cycle of repression was like, you need to be close to God and worship God, and then they'd have what was pretty normal, healthy sexual desire. If they acted on it, they'd feel incredible shame. And then the advice from the council, the teachers, was to get a closer relationship to God. So it was just it would get worse every time round. And yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bit of that cycle happening there. Like a lot of traditional cultures have their own form of that. But yeah. Yeah, so I guess for Japan, you could kind of see the manifestation of that trickle into anime. Yeah, that's real.
Anyway, no, I was just half joking around. I'm not trying to shit on anybody's hobby. Like that's fine. I think I've known people who like fucking anime and who read manga, comics, and stuff like that. So,
well, yeah, and what I've heard is that like I said, that stuff is kind of propagandized to everybody else just to kind of say like, hey, look at us, look how we are in Japan, we're harmless, you know, we just everything's cute, everything's a bunch of all we eat is noodles, and you know we just do our thing, leave us alone. But
everything's Pokemon over here.
Yeah. yeah. And I just think that's so crazy that, like I said, you know, the government went one way after World War II, and I guess some huge sector of Japan called the Yakuza went, you know, they just kind of stayed on that traditional training. It reminds me of like South America and their cartels. Oh, nice. Oh, there you go.
There's the map. There's the map for you.
What the fuck? Is it like...
It's a bunch of different...
What age is it in France?
It's 15 in France, which is fucking creepy, frankly.
Wait, so is it 14? No, it's 13 in Spain?
Holy shit.
Yeah, some of these are kind of alarming.
Wait, is this like the most up to date? Is it this year currently?
Pretty
sure. Right about Ireland, anyway.
I don't know how up to date this is, but this is what Wikipedia says.
I'm pretty sure this is the map that I saw.
Because
this is at least. I mean, it's got Canada at 16 years old, and I was living in Canada when it went from 14 to 16. And there was a lot of people were panicking around that time.
Look at the fucking States, man. God, can we just get along? Why are we like this?
What the fuck? What's going on in Central America? Why is it so low?
Oh my
Oh,
God.
yeah, that is low in Central America.
And I mean, also again, like traditional cultures, I think marriage did start at a younger age. But it's just looking at this map, even for like the United States, culturally, what's accepted is 18 adult or even 21. It depends on like the context. So it's weird to see all this yellow. Like
Yeah, look at
15.
these places where it must be married.
That's Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, Yemen, Oman, United Arab Emirates. There's a couple places, little islands around. In Europe, the dots in Europe are the micronations: Andorra, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, San Marino.
What's that grey country in the middle of Africa?
Oh, that's no data.
Yeah, I know, but what is the country?
I think that's the Central African Republic.
Whoa, okay, so this one says no, pink is no law. And is that Saudi Arabia and Yemen?
Yeah, that's Saudi Arabia and Oman.
So the only law is that you have to be married, but there's no age.
Yeah, but the weird thing is you got Tunisia on the north coast of Africa there. They're a Muslim country as well, and the age of consent is 20.
That probably only applies to guys.
Yeah, probably.
Damn.
Who knows? The law is there. Yeah, that Japan.
Yeah, where is Japan? Because was I right?
12. Oh no.
No, it's 13. It's 13. Japan
13.
is
Okay.
Where's it
That's
at?
okay. Yeah, that color is 13. Maybe I'm a bit colorblind.
Where you at? I can't even see your mouse. Are you clicking on it?
No, I can't see it on the page.
Presentation.
Yeah, I can't see it. I can only see when I click onto Wikipedia.
What is that? Is that Brazil? No, South America.
This one?
Yes, 14. Oh my god.
14, 13 on that lower end.
Fuck me. That's the way. Can we put this graph away? This is depressing me. Holy shit.
Yeah. We can
really
stop
eye-opening.
that.
Oh my god. Like, what the fuck?
No. I mean, I find it weird as hell that the age of consent here is 15, and there's no stipulations on that. Like, I know in Canada it's a bit more complicated than just 16. It's 16, but if you're with someone who has a position of authority, it's 18. So if you're with a school teacher, you have to be 18. If you're with anybody of any authority, it's 18. Pornography, to act in that, is 18 years old. But again, I think the law in France is that you have to be 18 to be in pornography. But again, this is one of the complicated things with law. There's a lot of cases in America where some 14-year-old girl takes a naked photo of herself, sends it to her boyfriend. He's now in possession of child pornography.
And so is she.
Yeah, she's also, but she would be classified as the victim of child pornography, even though she was also the photographer.
Even though she's distributing it.
She's the photographer.
No one's going to charge her for distributing child pornography either.
Yeah, they're never going to charge her.
But the laws around like child pornography in like the US and that are fucking like really like uber strict, and like to the point that almost I remember there was a podcast that Sam Harris did on that topic, and it's like, I'm not saying any of these laws are bad, but it's just they're almost even more strict than at least I imagined. So there was a bunch of like reporters trying to do investigative journalism into the issue, in particular into the issue on social media websites, you know, so how it was getting distributed. Because one of the issues is that obviously there was a time when to get your hands on that stuff, it was this fucking, you know, trench coats and Polaroids in a car park, you know, at the back of a fucking DVD shop. It's like,
no.
But now it's just like Facebook message, it's Twitter DMs, it's Discord servers, and but so they got their hands on a load of the material, right? But they were trying to do the journalism, but they obviously, so I think they were working for the New York Times, the guys that were doing it. So they obviously had to get a bunch of lawyers in to give them legal advice, around like what's legal and not legal here in terms of us having this shit and that. And essentially, I can't remember the details now, so take everything here with a pinch of salt. But the general picture was it was fine for them to have it, but they couldn't look at it. That was like they couldn't look at it, and they were warned like really strictly. They were like, "Do not fucking open this stuff on any of your devices. You are committing a federal crime if you open any of this stuff."
It would suck. It's like, I really don't want to be on this team. Why can't I just investigate the election?
Imagine some guy. Imagine you got some fucking wise ass dickhead on your team who's just like he's gonna hover over the open button and then he's just gonna do this right as he fucking clicks the button to open it, and then everyone's like, ah,
or go onto your computer, open all the files, and go. You go.
Exactly. Yeah. Now you're gonna go to prison.
I feel like getting a promotion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's the ultimate way of getting a pay rise. I sent you an email, boss. It's like, open the email. You now owe me a raise.
Yeah. But I remember, like, your man was explaining, it's like the laws are really fucking strict. Like it's, but it's so much so that one of the points that like was being made by Sam in the interview, or that Sam was trying to like maybe touch on, was just they made the job of reporting on the issue almost like really, really difficult, because it was very, very difficult to legally gain any of the information that you would need, anyway, Jesus, that's a strange, oh shit, my battery's gonna die. Here, give me a sec.
It's the same when people put together sting operations for pedophiles and whatnot. It's actually very difficult to not break the law yourself to put together. It's like when the police do these sting operations, it's very difficult for them to not break the law. What they need is a 19-year-old police officer to dress up and look as young as possible. And that's it. They're very difficult to. It's a very difficult crime to catch, surprisingly.
Well, we used to have a show in the United States called To Catch a Predator. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen
that.
Every time you bring that up now, I'm pretty sure, Andrew, you might know the Boondocks episode.
Which one?
Relating to Catch a Predator. Basically,
I haven't seen the Boondocks in so long, man. Ever since it got taken off the air.
Yeah. But basically, just quick premise is so basically a predator was at the house, and then the talk show host walks in and is like, "We gotcha. What are you gonna do now?" And the guy's like, "No, I'm here for you." Yeah, and then they're like, "What? There's people out there." And the guy's like, "That doesn't matter." So it's...
I have to brush up on my Boondocks. When I saw that, I was like, when did the Boondocks end? Do you remember?
A while ago, unfortunately.
I think that fella started up a YouTube channel that's like funded by Patreon that does the same thing that catches predators, but it's.
I thought I was like,
we thought you were talking about we thought, George, you were referring to the Boondocks creator started a Patreon. We're like, what?
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's that journalist. I think he started doing the same thing.
The Boondocks was like this old kind of cartoon type thing where it was like, I don't know, based on these two young like black boys, and one was really smart and kind of I don't know, well put together. The other one's just like a train wreck of a kid, and it just followed their like adventures, and it was like good kid, and like it was hilarious. It was a good show, but To Catch a Predator, yes, that's a different thing. Chris
I I've never heard of the cartoon, but I think the journalist who ran To Catch a Predator, I think he runs that privately funded now.
That's cool.
I saw a bunch of people like exposing him for something on YouTube, but I never clicked on anything, and I was like, what did he do? What did the To Catch a Predator guy do that was like so bad to get him like shitted on the internet? So I'm curious about that. Did you guys ever have that in Ireland, Danny, To Catch a Predator?
Ireland is just about 10 years outside of its Catholic phase, so no.
Oh. Okay. I always find
it's been okay. To be fair, it's been a little bit longer than 10 years, but we're still far too culturally conservative to have anything about pedophiles on the television.
It's funny because on Irish TV, when I went over to visit my family in Dublin, every other word on TV is feck, or
yeah. Well, feck is. I mean, I don't know. Like, because I mean, even I don't even know what do people fucking watch on TV in Ireland now. Everybody just watches Netflix like everyone else, you know. Yeah. But like,
you guys have a different Netflix, don't you? Like different shows and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They tailor it to wherever you are.
That's so like you telling me that, Danny, you telling me that kind of Ireland's barely getting out of its Catholic phase, just as a as a whole country. It's like that's so. I don't know. It's dumbfounding whenever I sit here, and I don't know if this applies to you too, Frank. But whenever I think about like the United States and like how we are and how things have just always been, I think that everyone else is like the same all over the world for some reason. Like I think we've all been at the same exact pace, and we're all like in the same place right now.
That is a thing that definitely lots of Americans do. Like you kind of Americanize everything else, like you know. Yeah. But to be fair, I don't think that's entirely. Like I think that's understandable to an extent, just because of how big of a place America is. It can be. I think it's like when you're talking about a country like with 300 and whatever million people. Like I mean, Ireland has 4.5 million people, so it's like. That's not even like if we're saying the United States is a country, like we're not like you guys have cities with more people than like our entire country, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know, just to hear about like the different cultures and stuff like that. I mean, and we just went over a damn map of the age of consent, and like there's no law in the Middle East for a couple places, and it's 13 in Japan and 15 in France, and I didn't see what it was in Ireland.
Well, it's 17. But like as in if you think about it, the way you should the way I kind of imagine it is like Americans looking at a country like Ireland is a bit just like kind of okay, it's like saying, well, there's this I don't know county in this state that is,
that's good. That's good. We need to look at Ireland. Andrew, kind of like Minnesota or something in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so cool. Like this is what Americans need. Americans need a picture of the globe with just every state everywhere. Instead of Australia, what's the outback in the United States?
Alaska.
Like Alaska, yeah. Or like Texas. I feel like Australia would be kind of like Florida. Just because how crazy it is.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Oh, God. Actually, on Australia, did you guys see on Twitter fucking Claire Lehman, the editor of Quillette? She tweeted there yesterday. She was like, look, I'm just going to come out and say it. James Lindsay is fucking retarded.
Wait. Who's James Lindsay?
He's the guy who did the grievance studies hoax with. Did you hear about this?
No.
Oh man.
Okay, I'm out of the loop.
Podcast a couple times too.
They came up with like studies where the title was like proof of how dog humping in parks is sexist or something.
Oh,
Yeah, it
Oh,
encouraged
okay,
rape.
yeah.
yeah.
So they came up with a bunch of pseudonyms and like submitted these completely piss take papers to a bunch of like postmodern peer reviewed journals, and a load of them got in, and it was like one of them was just a rewrite of a chapter of Mein Kampf with like feminist fucking rhetoric. I don't know if that one got accepted or not, but the dog humping in parks and the rape culture thing that got nominated for an award before they before the fucking journal found out that it was a joke. Um, but like, so obviously the point of it was to show like that we can literally make shit up and you'll publish it.
Hmm.
Uh, but anyway, like basically James Lindsay is one of the guys who did it, and he was he was the main writer, I think, behind most of them. And he's also like he was funny. I think that was one of the things. Like he was a funny guy,
Yeah.
but he has basically like what was it? Was it Nietzsche said that phrase or something like when you stare too long into the abyss stares back. Like that's basically what's happened to him. He's just lost his mind.
Oh,
And
damn.
but the only reason I mentioned this was like I just thought it was so funny because he has basically it's been obvious to everyone for the last like 6 to 9 months that he has been losing it, and people have just kind of even the ones who've said it out loud are fairly polite about it. And next thing, there's just this Australian just comes in as like he's fucking retarded. It's just like,
Yes, the Australians, are a bit of a hammer.
Yeah, it was great.
It's a
I
good
fucking
metaphor.
loved it.
That's
I loved
hilarious.
it. I was like, that's excellent.
I didn't even know because I got off. I used to follow him on Twitter and around like the Trump election kind of bullshit. A little bit before that, yeah, he was getting a little bit weird. And then I hopped off Twitter, but it's sad to hear that he's just kind of gone full on.
What sort of things is he up to now? Like, what is he claiming?
And before, I just want to preface this with like before he was super like anti woke, and like he and this woman named Helen Pluckrose wrote a book. It's like some sort of like guide to. I have the book. I haven't read it yet. I bought it recently, actually.
Yeah,
but it's like
cynical theories.
I've seen that.
yeah. And he's been on the Rogan podcast probably 2 or 3 times.
I'm sorry, what was the title of the book again?
It's called cynical theories. It's like a play on the critical theory.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So they try and walk you through the like where these ideas came from and how they evolved into what they are today. But like I mean, like she's a much better writer than he is. If you like, he's a good writer. Don't get me wrong, but she's much better. And she's more moderate, and he's like I don't know. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about him because to be honest, he is just so like at this point now it's just some childish shit. Like he's just like people will respond to him and try and offer up some like serious criticism, and he'll just make a fucking dick joke or something. It's like
yeah, and he I remember around the time I was getting off of Twitter, he was saying he made a post and it was kind of like weirdly self-aware, and he was like, I honestly hope that I'm the one that's going crazy because like seeing all you guys calling me crazy, I think that you guys are crazy. He's like, I really hope it's me. And it's like, well, yeah, all of your fans who have been kind of following you for all this time are saying the same thing. It's like, they have this sort of sense of
like Helen Pluckrose herself has just cut ties with him. So like the woman that wrote this fucking book with him only even like I think that book only came out in like the last 12 months, 18 months, couldn't be any longer than 18 months.
Yeah.
So she wrote that book with him, and even she's just like had enough.
Yeah. And I mean that's the thing with
I think having a following does that to you. You see this pattern again and again where people get popular, they get a following, and because it's not a negative feedback loop where it's like, okay, you said something ridiculous and bring you back. It's you say something ridiculous and you get support for it, and you just get more ridiculous, and you get support for it, and that's that. I think that having a following of people drives you off the deep end.
Well, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rebel Wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know Rebel Wisdom?
It's
a YouTube channel.
Yeah, they cover Jordan Peterson. It's kind of like the IDW. They cover a lot of these similar videos and similar topics.
Yeah. I really like the host. I think he's really reasonable. He's a really reasonable guy. He kind of explains to you how he gets to his conclusions and everything. And he was talking about James Lindsay recently and saying, you know, he's gotten to a point to where he throws the baby out with the bathwater in essentially every single situation. So like he was just kind of essentially anti-woke, but then he moved it to a point to where it's just like, no, nothing ever is okay to promote particular types of equality. Like everything's just a joke. Everything's some sort of like has some sort of woke foundational structure, you know. So
yeah.
That's kind of where he's gone, if I'm understanding correctly.
Can I switch up gears on this a little bit? Am I the only one who thinks that Jordan's daughter is fucking tapped?
She's what?
Like fucking tapped. Like she's crazy.
I think having met a lot of Canadians in my life, I think she's a very typical kind of Ontarian Canadian that I've met.
Well,
very typical sort of opinions, sort of the way she thinks is pretty common in Canada. And I mean, you don't always come to the same conclusion as her, but like she really does strike me as very, very Canadian.
Damn, Rebecca would have been perfect today.
Yeah.
Get her opinion.
The fucking, I don't know, like, I mean, like her fucking meat diet, her meat and fucking water diet, her carnivore thing, and she's all like, oh yeah, it fucking cured my whatever the fuck. And it's like, then she gets Jordan onto that same fucking diet, and Jordan is sitting there in various interviews talking about how like I think it was on Joe Rogan. He said something like around the time that he was on Sam's podcast that first time, like what did he have? I think he had like, was it a fucking, I don't know, was it a root beer or was it a beer or was it something like orange juice or something like that?
Yes.
You know,
it's like cider. It was cider.
Oh, that was it. It's like cider, and it's like. And he said, so he had one thing of cider and it like fucking it knocked him out, knocked him flat in his ass for a couple of weeks. And it's like and you're just sitting there going like, dude, like what the fuck?
I actually agree with that. I didn't really know if anyone else thought that, because I feel like the thing is that people give Michaela too much charity because she's Jordan's daughter.
Yeah.
So they kind of come in with this really, really overly charitable approach to everything that she says. And so, I mean, she kind of gains this following, and
she's a pure grifter. Like, I mean, she's just grifting off of her dad's fucking success. I don't see what of value she adds, like, at all. Like, she charges like hundreds of, I don't know if she still does, but she used to charge like hundreds of fucking dollars for like memberships to like her website, which was something to do with some kind of like something to do with that diet. Do you know?
Don't eat was her thing, and it was originally she was talking about like really, really restrictive diets. And like again, a lot of people who are allergic to a lot of things, you've got to figure out what you're allergic to. And there's a lot of different diets out there, like the Eat Right for Your Type is tailored diets for your blood type and things like that. Which there's a lot of science behind the blood type diets. You know, if you're blood type A, then the A antigen comes from the first people who are agrarian, and the blood type O comes from people who are much more omnivorous, from collecting what they could find and killing animals.
Okay, so O is for omnivore. So you just find the letter and then you match the word.
How it looks actually like is on your red blood cells, on your red blood cells, you have antigen, which are part of your immune system. They're not your white blood cells, which actually surround, clump up, and like if you got an infection here, white blood cells will find it, surround it, and clump up, so it can't do anything. And again, you end up with like little bits of platelets in your blood, which is, and that's what your liver and rest of your body tries to get rid of. But your red blood cells have antigens. Now, blood type O, you don't have antigens on your red blood cells. You have your antigens in your blood plasma. But blood type A, you have the A antigen on the red blood cell. And then blood type B, you have the B antigen on your red blood cell. And then there's also blood type AB, which has both. And if you mix these if you get a blood transfusion, you get the wrong type, it'll kill you. In fact, the biggest symptom is you just get this panic and feeling of dread, and then you have organ failure. So, and then you've got the positive and negative, but that's the Rh factor in your blood. That's a separate thing. But
I don't have an opinion on diet and shit. That's not. It's just like But I like. There's just no fucking way this chick on the internet says, just stop fucking eating meat, guys. It's gonna be really good for you. I swear to God. Or sorry, eat only meat. Right. It's gonna be really fucking good for you.
Well, it wasn't because of her experience. She was doing the restrictive, and that she found out that was pragmatic for her situation.
Well, yeah, but even that, like, I'm like, because again, just leave aside that she's Jordan Peterson's daughter.
Yeah.
Imagine some random chick on the internet telling you, like, eat only meat and water, guys. I swear to God, it cured like 20 years of my autoimmune disease. You know, it's like you'd be sitting there going, I fucking doubt that, man. There's got to be some other shit going on there. And it's like, I don't know the timelines in that, but I've seen some stuff that, like, you know, she, like, so it might not have even necessarily cured her like mental illnesses and that, because she was on fucking massive rounds of antidepressants and stuff at the same time. And it's like, so this is a girl who you've no idea what exactly her background knowledge is. You've no idea. She's obviously clearly very fucking troubled, because Jordan has talked about how they've had suicide issues and stuff in the family, and she's gone off of the last few decades of obviously immense suffering and depression and stuff. Like, this is not somebody that should be charging hundreds of fucking dollars to people to go onto her diet fucking website. Like, I mean, this is, and then Jordan actually following her lead and doing it as well. And like, I'm sorry, man, but like, Jordan a lot of the time looks like fucking death. Like, that man looks gaunt a lot of the time, you know. I mean, and he's sitting there going, oh, I feel great. And you're like, you don't look great, man. You really don't.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, yeah, I think it was really shown. I mean, her depth of knowledge was shown. I don't know if you guys saw the Joe Rogan podcast with her in it, but her depth of knowledge about what she was talking about was really exposed on that podcast, because he was pressing her just kind of like how he pressed. I don't know if you guys saw his podcast with Candace Owens, where he pressed on climate change, and she was like, well, I just don't believe it. And he was like, what do you mean you don't believe it? Like, tell me why. And she just couldn't. She couldn't put anything together at all about why she didn't believe it. And it's the same thing with Michaela. Michaela couldn't put together anything regarding, you know, because her claim was, well, you know, sedentary lifestyle has no effect on, you know, I guess your fitness and your health and whatnot. Like, you can be absolutely sedentary as long as you eat a particular diet or what have you, you'll be fine. And Joe Rogan was like, well, no. He's like, I think that's completely wrong. We're made to be kind of mobile, and we should be up and doing things, and it definitely affects your health and your cardiovascular system and your metabolism. And she was just like, I just don't believe it. I don't think that you have to like, it was, that's the extent to which her knowledge about, you know, physical fitness and health went. And when I watched that, I was like, oh my goodness.
Because at one point she was like, she was saying Jordan couldn't exercise. And okay, fine, there's some instances, but then Rogan was like, well, he could at least stand up or walk.
Yeah,
it's just,
could he walk? Yeah,
something. He just, because something relative to his situation. relative increment for Jordan, because there's always a relative increment, and that was Rogan's response.
And what I don't like about how she's promoting that carnivore diet is it's actually not optimal. Like maybe it's decent for her and Jordan, but they're like there's consistent research that shows that like the sex hormone binding globulate it skyrockets if you're on the carnivore diet, which actually takes like a ton of your testosterone, your free testosterone, and binds to it. So you don't have a whole lot of testosterone. Your testosterone plummets in your body, so where you barely have any free testosterone.
But it's just like I don't know. Like I think that like to just talk about maybe like Jordan as well, like because she's just a quack. Like she's a fucking quack, but she's Jordan Peterson's daughter, and so people don't treat her like a quack. Now, all that being said, I don't know what has and has not worked for her. If that diet really has helped make her life a bit better, then more power to you, Michaela. Like, good for you. But it's like she doesn't really know what she's talking about. Like, she doesn't seem to know anything about fucking diet and health and nutrition. And then Jordan just like, I mean, I don't know, man. Like
I mean,
he's brilliant.
I could see it from Jordan's perspective because like everything that she went through, like I think we all know her backstory. To see your own daughter recover or get relatively better, I can see why he would want to try it too. And it's been supposedly working for him. Like maybe, like you said, physically he might not look the best, but mentally he's feeling a lot better.
But mentally he completely fucking fell apart. Now I know there was other stuff going on and whatever, like of course, but it's like so the guy was apparently like fucking very like whatever was going on with him mentally and in terms of his diet, even when he first got popular, like around the time when he first went on Sam Harris's podcast and stuff. So he's then on this weird ass fucking diet as well as some kind of dosage of antidepressants for years. He then enters this really stressful period in his life where he's like traveling all around the world. He's writing fucking books, giving talks.
And he takes something else, another form.
And
he's on anti-anxiety medication as well. His whole family does strike me as, and it's quite common in Canada from what I'd seen, is a lot of people are very unhealthy. And yeah, he just they strike me as not very healthy people.
Now, when you say unhealthy, George, you mean they're mentally unhealthy?
I think physically, like she's had arthritis as a kid, which again, like in Canada, there was a lot of people I went to school with who were on psychoactive medication. A lot of kids were on ADHD medication. A lot of kids I went to school with had weird diseases that it's just like, we just didn't have in England. Never heard of a kid being that ill. So I don't know if it's where they're from, their particular genetic cluster, but they just strike me. And again, it's more common in where they're from. Just the fact that they don't really seem very healthy people. And I think the physical is what causes the mental problems.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, it's just that then I just think that for such a fucking smart guy, right? I find it very fucking weird and he's so into science and he backs everything up with science, whatever the fuck, wherever he puts it, and it's like, and then he's going to sit there with a straight face and just go, yeah, man, I'm fine on my carnivore diet. And you're like, dude, you are not fucking fine. You're a genius, but you are clearly not fine. Like anybody who looked like you and was on kind of like antidepressants and shit like you are, and and looked as gaunt as you did, if they weren't also a genius, like people would be looking at you going, man, you are not well. You like as in, it's more a testament to clearly how much of an unbelievable mind he has that he was still able to function at that level. Like when he seemed to just be so fucking unhealthy. Like and it's the like I mean I'm sorry, like I don't know, we don't know the details, but this fucking thing where he like went to Russia for some fucking experimental treatment and he ends up in some kind of fucking induced coma or some shit when they take him out because he's got to be on like cold turkey on the drugs. It's like, and he nearly fucking dies, and then Michaela gives him COVID. It's just like what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a bit of a fucking saga. It's
wild.
Because I know,
Yeah.
like, I heard that they tried everything in the West, so that's why they went to Russia. That was like their last effort.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Like what? You're telling me that one of the fucking like I mean he's a multi millionaire at this point. You're telling me that he couldn't get the fucking best healthcare in the world in the fucking United States if he wanted it?
No, I think
Well,
they did.
yeah.
Like they contacted
Yeah.
various places in the
I'm
U.S.,
I'm
but they
very
couldn't.
skeptical. I'm very very fucking skeptical.
Yeah, and
that
that's fair. You know, to be skeptical, but that's what they said. That's their
that's what
output.
Michaela has said. You know that, and it has been mainly Michaela who's talked a lot on the news about this. You know,
Yeah, because I don't know if you heard the recent. Okay, because the New York Times came out with an article, but Jordan and Michaela released the unedited interview, so you hear the entire conversation, and she gets into all of that, and she does mostly talk about it.
That wasn't the New York Times. That was the Times in England.
Correct.
Yeah, that was the Times in England. They did a right hatchet piece, and again, it's a very disingenuous hatchet piece. It wasn't like you're being skeptical of something and asking probing questions. It's just, they said the word schizophrenia. Oh, he has schizophrenia, and it's like that's a very, very English thing to do.
but the thing is in like even something like that, like I'm almost skeptical of even whose idea that interview was, and like what exactly was the point? What was Jordan trying to do? Because I understand why he took all of those like more contentious interviews, let's say a few years back, because he's trying to promote his book. You know, that's what
a new book now. He's got a new book coming out as
but
well.
the interview was about.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing, current evolution. I think what's happened is I think Michaela has become his sort of de facto manager, and
Dumb idea. Oh my god.
yeah, I don't think she's up to that.
Yeah.
I really don't think she's. I know that he has a publicity manager from his publisher, but she's there on every podcast and every on every interview. I understand he needs someone he can trust, but I just don't feel like she's up to it.
Yeah, like I even think that that's fucking creepy. Like, why is she on the fucking podcast with him? Do you know, as in like if he's not able for it by himself, the man needs to chill the fuck out.
Yeah, either take some time off or
he needs to work. He needs to and he needs to work on his own health. Like, is in, but this it seems I don't know. I'm being pure mind reader here, obviously. So I'll put my hands up and admit that. But it's like I've known people who are in a situation like this where you have someone like Michaela who strikes me almost like somebody who's what you call it. They've injected themselves into another person's life, and they have made it so that
Like
they've made that person feel like they need me. You know, they need me. I'm gonna like look after them. I'm gonna make sure their welfare and stuff. But what they're really doing is they're a fucking parasite. You know, they're making it worse.
Oh.
And they're not really helping. What they want is they want somebody to be a dependent of them, you know, on some level. And it's like I've known people that are in that scenario, and it's like she reeks of it to me. Like she just reeks of that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird that they had that guy Wim Hof on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of outside of what Jordan usually does. Like Jordan isn't really into the kind of woo-woo stuff, I guess, to that extent.
Oh yeah, him.
Like
Oh, the
when
guy
he's
who's
off,
doing
like
the cold treatment and stuff like that, like getting cold and cold water and things.
And he's in this breathing
yeah,
shit.
yeah, he was
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I think I know
like,
what you're talking about.
yeah,
I
he
never
was
seen it before.
breathing. And I just, yeah, that was kind of confusing to me. I was like, well, he's more into, people that are very qualified in their fields, and I
Study.
guess a little bit harder science than just breathe in and out, and then your autoimmune disease will be gone.
Yeah, man, it's fucking weird. Like, it's really creepy.
And that, I feel like that's more along Michaela Peterson's, I guess her character to be into that kind of stuff, because it seems like that's consistent. With
Yeah,
what she
I
does,
think I
what she
think
does is not back to.
I'm not attacking her personality here. I think she like as a person to know. I think she'd be a nice enough person to know. But I don't. She clearly doesn't have a scientific background. I went to school for engineering. Right. I did not go to school for medicine. I did not go to school for all of these things. I can talk to you about material science. I can talk to you about mathematics, design, engines, that sort of thing. But she clearly doesn't have a background in what she's talking about.
No,
Um,
well, yeah,
Which in itself is fine. I don't have a huge problem with that. Like, I mean,
I don't have psychological training. We're talking about psychology.
yeah, yeah. Like, I'm okay with that. But it's just like she seems to just not give a shit about like the fact that she like doesn't like that she's out of her wheelhouse. Let's say for that kind of phrase.
no, yeah, and I think that kind of the what I get from that is she's kind of like, well, the research behind this other stuff is actually not even that strong, so that actually strengthens my non-scientific approach. I think that's what I get from her so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
And one time I saw Jordan do that on climate science, and I didn't really like that. I was like, well, you can't just say, climate science is a bunch of bogus, and you've read up on it and whatnot, because someone outside of your field could say the same thing about psychology. So,
Well, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think Jordan has said before that he was involved in that, like in studying like the climate change and the research. He was
He was on a
involved.
he was on a climate change panel, advisory panel to the UN.
yeah,
He did read a lot. As he said, I think it was in his book. I can't remember if it was in his book or an interview. He said he spent a lot of time reading a lot of, and he's got some interesting conclusions, which the best way of cleaning up the planet is to get people out of poverty. Then they start cleaning up the area around them, which this seems to be absolutely true. But yeah, I mean, like I've seen a lot of evidence. I did a course on Antarctica. The climate models in Antarctica seem to be following the exact predictions made in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. So it's like, yeah, the models that have been made, they're pretty accurate, and they're not anywhere near as optimistic as Jordan Peterson is about it.
no. Yeah, when I in that interview, I forgot who was interviewing him. I think it was that really. It wasn't Kathy Newman. It was the really smart, quick-witted.
Helen Lewis.
Wait, who or the GQ interview?
Yeah, Helen Lewis from GQ. Yeah.
Yeah. She was really quick, and in that interview, that's the only one that I had seen. Well, that's the only time in which I had seen his opinion on any sort of climate science, and he was just really dismissive in that one. And I thought that was a bit out of character, but I think that he was kind of pissed off in that interview. I don't know if you got the same kind of vibe in that one, but yeah, pretty much all I have to say about that.
So yeah, with Michaela, I mean, again, like with everyone, especially Michaela, I take a grain of salt whenever she starts talking because she's not an expert, and it's like you have to accept the premise that she's doing it all based off her experience. Like these are results from her life, and that's all you can do. Like if you're in that same position, you try her method, see if it works, but it's definitely no guarantee. There's no guarantee to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't all have an autoimmune disorder.
Yeah, but what does throw me off, and this is like something that turns me off. This is the first thing, or I guess maybe the only thing. I don't know. That turns me off is Danny. You mentioned she was charging like $100 or more for this.
Yeah, she charges a lot of money. Like she's a fucking grifter, man. I will say, like, I find it. Now again, this is a small complaint or whatever, but it's like, does anyone else remember Jordan going fucking after Justin Trudeau for making a name for himself based off of his father's name?
Yeah.
And you're just like, hello, like, like, do you know what I mean? Like, as in, now at the same time, the thing is, I actually think like Jordan was full of shit when he gave out about Trudeau doing that. As in the sense that I agree with him that it would be better for people not to do that, or not so much. It's not okay. It's usually a more character building to do this stuff all by yourself, you know. But that doesn't mean that nobody can fucking do that. You know, can use their parents' reputations and names for things. Like it's a part of the way the world is, and it's like it doesn't it just because somebody did use their parents' name, it doesn't automatically mean that it's a bad thing. But like when you got someone, and I don't know enough about Trudeau, maybe he really was a massive grifter, like what Jordan was talking about. But like Michaela is clearly a grifter. Michaela is 100% profiteering off of her dad's name.
I mean, she's profiteering, but is she using it like? She's definitely reaping benefits from that. But the question is, well, I don't know how to say it. Is she doing it in a wrong way? Is she, you know what I'm saying? Like, because what is grifting? Like, how would you phrase that?
I think of grifters as people who, what would you say? So if there's some kind of a problem, you know, and everyone wants to solve a fucking problem, grifters are people who benefit or who make money in some way off of continuing the problem.
It's like a con artist. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, it's like, but it's more like, you know, like, so a con artist will just sell you a shitty car telling you it'll run great, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas like a grifter is someone who, like, I don't know, he's like, I guess, a mechanic that doesn't really fix your car, but like so you continuously bring the fucking car back to them, you know, and then they kind of half fix it again and stuff. It's like that's what a grifter feels like to me, and like she seems to be someone like that, where she's just always like there, you know, and you're like, why are you here? Like
Yeah, his Jordan Peterson's criticism of Justin Trudeau was mainly based off of the fact that he got political clout through his father's name, and he got political clout through his family. And his criticism was basically, you know, you're using your father's reputation, and this isn't. We don't live in a kingdom, even though Canada kind of is. He's got a queen. But you know, your prime minister shouldn't be a king. But I think Michaela Peterson, I wouldn't really have. I think she gets a lot of. She uses her father's credibility, which is, I think, what's wrong. She doesn't just make a claim and does interviews and stuff. She's borrowing her father's and eroding through proxy her father's credibility as a scientist. I mean, Jordan Peterson is a very well established scientist. He's done a lot of work in academia, and she's not done the work, but she's using the name and the association as a sort of appeal to authority.
But has she done that? Like, how has she done that? Just to like play devil's advocate.
Yeah, I haven't watched too much of her stuff.
Me neither.
But the vibe I get is the like when Joe Rogan presses her on something, it's like, well, you know, this is science, and it's like, yes, but your father is a scientist, you're not. And I could quite see how she could be very useful on Jordan Peterson's podcast as the layman, because actually having, if you've got two intellectuals having a discussion about something, it would be handy. A lot of movies do this too. Like Twister has the guy's fiance, someone who is a layman to help relate the information to the audience. But she doesn't come across like that. She comes across like she's guiding the conversation.
Yeah, like
relaying the conversation to the layman.
compare it to his son. Do you even know his son's name?
Julian.
I didn't fucking know his son's name. But the point is, or compare it to his wife, like Tammy, and that, like, as in, I have no issue with this idea that maybe he might, essentially employ some of his family members to do a job or something like that, so that they can benefit from the success that he's having, which is great, and it's fine. It's wonderful for people to share their success with the people they love, and the people they care about.
Daughter is someone you can trust a lot more than someone you would hire.
Yeah, and it's like if she was like doing some work for him, whatever that was, if it was like managing his podcast, or maybe picking and choosing interviews and organizing interviews and all this kind of stuff, like, that's fine. But it's like, I don't understand how or why it ever reached a point where it's like, oh, Michaela's on camera, like, why is Michaela on camera? Like,
yeah, I mean, in Jordan Peterson's podcast, she could definitely be a benefit to the podcast as, okay, look, the layman probably, I didn't understand that, so the audience probably aren't going to understand that. Can you explain that to me?
yeah.
Right? The layman, the layman role is very important in relaying information that might go above most people's head. But she's like the mediator, the moderator, and it's like, it just doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah, you're just sitting there going like, I don't know what it is your role is here. I don't know, like, what would be different if you weren't here? It's like, and so when I see something like that, I immediately start to think that, especially when you have someone like Jordan, who I'm assuming is in a rather vulnerable fucking state at the moment, it's like, I start to worry that this is somebody who is injecting themselves into that place, and you're just like, well, why are you there? And it's like, because there isn't a reason to be there, that they're there. They're just there because they want to be, and they are, in some sense, in the driver's seat.
So, just to be clear, it's not bad. It's not bad. She can have a podcast. You could be the daughter of Jordan Peterson, have a podcast, express your views. But I would say something definitive would be if YouTube had a category for commentary or expertise. If she labeled her videos as expertise videos, that would be a definitive problem. Like, you're not a scientist. You don't have the credentials. You need to say this is commentary.
Yeah, it's not just the credentials. She really does not use a scientific approach.
Yeah, hasn't even done any of the research either.
Yeah, it's like the way she talks is the way Canadians talk, and I'm quite aware. I have a lot of Canadian friends. They talk in the same sort of way, and it's kind of hard to describe, but it isn't the scientific method, and she's not applying academic principles. She's delving into ideas based on her own experience. And it's like, that's fine, but
it's not enough.
Yeah, but she's clearly using her father's scientific credibility.
He's like, he there's a lot of goodwill that comes along with his name.
Yeah.
And she's using it,
Yeah. I think she kind of like tries to say that, her anecdote combined with pseudoscience is truth. and it's kind of a cure for whatever problem that you're facing right now. That's the
Yeah, well, I'm skeptical generally of people who say, "Oh, well, I did X and it worked for me,"
mhm.
and you're like, "Do you know why?" And they're like, "Nope."
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just like, "Well, like that's fine, just for you, you know." And it's like,
right.
"Well, great," but if you have no idea why, then you shouldn't really be fucking advising other people to follow in your footsteps. You know,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I
like
don't.
that's some common sense, like like isn't because I might try something like so I might switch up, I might cut out fucking I don't know brown bread from my diet, and it might have whatever, and I might notice some kind of a thing, in my health, in a couple of months, and it's like if my friend then was like, "Oh, you look different, or you look better, or whatever," and he'd be like, "What did you do?" And I'd be like, "I don't know, man. I just stopped eating bread." Like, I'm not going to turn around and say, "Yeah, man, you need to fucking stop eating bread." Like, I swear to God, it's going to be really good for you. Because I'm just sitting there going, I have no idea. It might not have been the fucking bread at all.
And has she done that? Because I know she puts her opinion out there with the diet and all of that. But I thought she was doing it in a way where it's like, this is just my opinion. This is not like because I know she's done
No,
her research.
no,
She
she's
has
charging people who fucking are going on her diet to fucking join her bloody web. I don't know if she's still doing it, but she charges people then to be on this like support group online.
yeah
Like, it's fucking.
because I'm more of the support group and because the thing is, in her defense or to steel man her, it's like maybe this is like a nuanced area situation. It's not as popular as diabetes or something, and now she's trying to find people who are going through the same thing she's doing. But that's the thing. If she's charging people, like, why are people paying for it? One, and yes, that doesn't
Yeah.
sound ethical. Like, why are you
No,
charging people for
I don't.
this?
I don't think it is at all. Like, it's.
There was something she was saying in when she released the full audio of the Times interview. Something that she did point out, which I do completely agree with, is they asked, why did you take your father to Russia? And it's like, well, Russia does have some good hospitals. Russia does have some bloody experts in some very interesting fields. I mean, we go to space on Russian rockets these days. So yeah, I understand the mental image in the West we have of Russia, but that's not accurate. There is a lot of expertise in Russia as well. So to in her defense, yeah, you know what, Russia is an unusual option, but there is some great expertise in Russia that is not hamstringed by the FDA in America. So healthcare in America is very, very well controlled, which is good in a way, but it's very, very slow to act to new information because of the FDA and the FDA approval method,
Yeah.
which in a way is very good, but it means that experimental stuff like coma detoxes and stuff like that are not done in America. You'd have to go to Mexico, where there's a lot of very good doctors in Mexico, or Russia, where
But like,
there's
even by their own admission, he nearly fucking died as
yeah,
a result of this. So you're just sitting there going, like, really? Like, we're calling that a success? Like, so you went away and you took a treatment that apparently is not allowed in fucking the United States, which is the leading fucking medical health
yeah,
provider in the world. So you took this treatment and it nearly fucking killed you. It's like a year and a bit later and you're still like barely fucking managing to put your life back together. And apparently we're going to call that a fucking, oh yeah, man, the fucking US health service was terrible. We had to go to Russia so they could fix my dad. It's like, what?
yeah.
And
I understand your point. I understand your point. However, I've not been to Russia, but for example, the Russian space program is something that I've read a hell of a lot about, and the image we have of Russia and the what actually happens there is not the same thing.
No, yeah, of course, but and that's completely fair, and it's like But I just mean it in the sense that, look, I'm glad they found a treatment that did something that worked for Jordan. I am.
Yeah.
But like, you should not be painting this picture where you went away and you got a treatment, and it was a treatment just to get him off fucking benzodiazepine. He wasn't dying. Do you know? He only fucking nearly died because of the fucking treatment they put him under. Do you know? He was now, don't get me wrong, he was really sick as far as I know, and he was having a lot of fucking issues. But he himself was not dying until he fucking went over to Russia. And the whole reason they have to put you in a coma is because if they don't put you in a coma, you'll be in so much fucking agony from them taking you off this shit.
But
it's not just that they take you off it, isn't it? They actually put some chemicals through you to like dispel this shit from your system. Isn't like
I'm not sure. I haven't looked up the actual process myself, but
yeah, big pinch of salt here. But I just remember reading at the time the basic outline of the procedure is that it's not just that you go cold turkey and then they put you in a coma. It's that you go cold turkey and then they pump you with chemicals that are meant to get rid of this shit from your system and get and the whole point is that it really traumatizes your body, so they have to put you in a coma because you're just not going to be able to hack it if you're conscious.
Hey guys, real quick, I gotta take off. So
yeah, I gotta go in 2 minutes.
I gotta get going too. I've got ground school to review. Got my pilot's license exam in 2 weeks, so I gotta take off myself.
All right.
Okay.
All right. It was great talking to you guys.
It was a good conversation. I look forward to talking to you guys again, man.
All right. Okay, I gotta go. I'll go as well. So, guys, I gotta go eat something. All right.
All right.
Have a good one, guys. Speak to you. Bye.
Bye bye.